And so, do you want to just briefly introduce you?
Sorry?
Michelle?
So I missed that.
Yeah, I do want to introduce you briefly.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I'm Michelle Fulbrook. I run a business called The Painted Pearl. Essentially, I'm a painter and an artist, but I'm a designer too. I had a retail shop up until last year, which we decided not to take that forward for this year. And we've gone online, which turned out to be a good decision with COVID. So yeah, I've been connected to Christine and the Swag project for must be about 5 years or so now. So yeah, just really wanted to check back in and see what was happening and be part of ongoing discussions about women and empowerment, and just check back in, I think.
So that's great. That's good. It's good to have you all the time. Great. So what we're looking at today is our discussion. COVID. Everybody has been talking about COVID, 19, and how it's affecting people. And you must have heard over the news that BME communities are more prone to COVID-19, and not just being infected, but also, could die or succumb to COVID-19. And this, just think about it. Forget the BME community, think about a human, as a human being, and you hear that there's a disease going about and that one can easily get infected and die from it. Won't you as a human being be frightened? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and now just drill it down again to saying there are specific groups in our communities that are more prone to having this. And if it happens that you're from those communities that are more prone to having it for one reason or the other, how do you think you will feel? That you'll be so frightened,
Yeah.
And so I'm being so frightened and worried and anxious and stressed actually could now begin to impact on your psychological well-being. And that's the state of mind that most BME, or what you call the Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups, find themselves. And each morning that you open you turn on your television or your radio, the first thing that filters in is, COVID is affecting these groups more than other people. And before you want to go to bed, the next news that you listen to before you get to bed is how it's affecting those people, and how new reports have come through, kind of reaffirming that this is what's exactly is happening. So every single day, yesterday it was that thinking about vitamin D, how is it happening? How is it the efficacy of taking vitamin D by these communities? And then this morning again, the next report was the impact on the relationship between diabetes and COVID. So it's something
compounding all the time, isn't it? It's the potential problems are compounding and compounding. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's why we decided to look specifically at the mental health of these ethnic communities and thinking what's going on, how will it be affected, what will actually impact on their mental well-being. And so one of the things we talked about is the anxiety and fear from COVID.
Yeah.
Like every other communities, BME communities are affected by the news that we receive every day from the news, the television, the radios, the newspapers, and also rumors that you hear every day. Some people say drink bleach, actually. So you hear all sorts of things, and it's worrying, isn't it? So that's actually very frightening. So it affects like every other community that have fears and anxiety, and this is compounded by the race and ethnic aspect of faith, whereby maybe there is a makeup within these communities that makes make them very prone to being infected by this COVID. And then it's isolation. For every community, actually, nobody likes to be isolated. Human beings are social animals, aren't we? But when you now come to most ethnic minorities, we don't like being isolated at all. We are more than social animals. We really love rubbing bodies and touching and seeing people and talking. And that's why you see the kind of parties we have, and the kind of, if you go to the churches we attend, they begin to see how we socialize and what we do. And having, been separated from those kind of things, not being able to go out because going to markets alone for an ethnic minority person, especially a Black minority person, is actually socializing. Because in the markets, you're not just putting things in the basket, but you're also having rapports and chatting and, doing all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And then for you not to be able to do that, to church, and for you to be able to visit other extended, because we like lots of extended family. We're not like nuclear family where extended family members that mean a lot, and not being able to see them really begins to hit home so much and impact on the mental well-being of these community people. Do you have anything you want to say regarding that?
I mean, I think it's an area that I'm open to be educated on. I mean, I can see exactly the points you're making. I mean, they make sense from just a human point of view.
Yes.
But I can also see, sense of family and community for ethnic minority groups. If you've come to this country as an ethnic minority, then you're already fractured from your family. So the connections that you have are important, and that's doubly important, I think. And just being a minority group, being outside of, as you say, I mean, nuclear families here. I mean, what does isolation mean to a British nuclear family? It probably is different. I mean, I'm thinking about it as you're talking. What are the similarities and what are the differences? What do I need to think more carefully about, and what common ground do we share? I mean, I think it's good to have a discussion, because I can see, particularly with the other things that are going on in the news, the BLM stuff, there's other issues. You were talking about the intersection earlier of where women are similar and where they're different. Those intersections, they're coming to play there. Are you socially and economically isolated? Are you going to become more economically isolated because of this? Because you work in a certain sector which attracts certain groups of people, and it rolls on and on. So I think they're important discussions for everybody to have, because there will be overlaps in lots of places.
Exactly, and it's really good that we're having this conversation, because obviously being from a minority community and having you also from the mainstream community is, rubbing minds and talking about this, looking at, the areas where we are, we find common grounds and, areas of the similarity. So that's really wonderful, to, for us to begin to explore these issues, in this kind of platform. There's something that I want to talk about. Maybe you've never heard about it before, but I'll talk about it. And this is what we call the somewhere else. Have you heard about the somewhere else syndrome?
No, I don't think I have. I'm beginning to conjure in my mind what it might mean. So go ahead and tell me.
No. Tell me what you think. What does it conjure up for you?
It conjures in my head a sense of maybe living in the future, living, you exist here, but you're thinking where I really want to be is there, and you living in not a fantasy, but you're not present in the here and now, because maybe where you are here and now isn't where you want to be. So you're constantly projecting into the future and into somewhere else. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, you actually go towards the right direction. Well done. So when ethnic minority persons say, "Oh, I'm having this somewhere else syndrome," it means that, for every ethnic or migrant or ethnic minority person that lives here in the UK, you have a place of origin. And that's why people ask us, even though you're a British citizen, people still ask you, "Oh, where do you come from originally?"
Okay,
Yes, where do you come from originally? And don't you think that this place where you come from originally, the roots, the source of your being, don't you think that from time to time, there may be, some kind of connection to that root, So you may want to go back to that root. So the idea of somewhere else syndrome is that sometimes we find, we are here, living here in the UK, you settled, you're a British citizen, but you still have your roots in the country of origin. And then from time to time, you have this kind of nostalgia. You have these nostalgic feelings of, "Oh, I want to be there now. I need to be there now." And then if it happens to be, let's say, there's no social distancing, for instance, then you had that nostalgic feeling this summer that you want to be there. So you buy your ticket and you go back to the country of origin. And believe me, as soon as you land and leave the plane, you touch down and you're wheeling your suitcase to go back to your house there, you start feeling again, "Oh,
you realize why you left."
Yes, exactly. So that alone, so that feeling of somewhere else impacts on many people, minority communities' psychological well-being.
Yeah.
It does. And to compound this, COVID compounds it, because you're here with your family, you're here with your immediate family, everything is okay. Thankfully, no member of the family had COVID, for instance, but you are still drawn to the country of origin, and you have that pull. You're listening to news over that what's going on there, and you're always praying and say, "Oh, I wish those people there are not having this COVID." And so you're living in fear. So you have two, fears on both sides.
Yeah.
You have the fears of what's happening here, and you have the fears of what's happening over there.
I get it.
And so that exacerbates your mental, the mental health issues that ethnic minority people may have. And so does that make sense?
Completely. My brother lives in Texas, and I'm monitoring, and we have family in Australia, and we can see very different experiences on, in these three different parts of the world, here, America and Australia. And there's nothing you can do about it apart from watch from the sidelines. And, where my brother is, it's not great news at the moment in America, particularly in Texas right now. And I don't have my roots there, but I'm thinking of him, and then you're split, because you can't none of us can do anything. We can't move anywhere, and he can't move. And I'm just trying to think if that was where if that's where my roots were. I'm not sure how he experiences it. He will be experiences in reverse. So he'll be looking back to here, seeing what's going on in the UK, and worrying about us. Yeah.
You see, that's the thing. So we have, you see the similarity now also is that I have families also in Texas.
Ah.
I have families in Houston, Texas, and Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And I just came back from Houston, Texas, less than 4 days when the lockdown happened. Yeah, so would have been left there also. Yeah. So you see the common grounds. You will also be thinking about your family, your brother in Texas, and those in Australia. But the difference is that you are in your home country.
But I am here in my, exactly.
Exactly, so, which is quite different from the other people and their somewhere else syndrome. And then, at this time, you know, when we are talking about COVID also, and all the problems, the economic and the social problems that it's bringing, but we also have some structural inequalities that's been all there long before COVID, and which has not disappeared because of COVID anyway. Unfortunately, many ethnic minorities are still going through exclusion, are still going through racism. And you can't believe it that even at this time that people are panicking, that some people are still out there causing chaos and, you know, causing community tension by their racist behaviors that they're having against other people. You will think they calm down, but I'm giving you an example of some community members, some Black ethnic minority people that are working in the front line, and their colleagues are busy calling them nigger.
You'd think it would bring people together. You'd think that the shared vulnerability would bring people together.
Exactly, but it doesn't. You will think that this, okay, why would you call somebody that you are working so closely with to fight this kind of trouble, that global issue? Yeah. Why wouldn't you forget your wickedness and behave yourself? Why call them nigger?
Is it because the thin veil of I don't know how to put it, the thin veil of like acceptance of equality with the stress of everything that's going on, they just can't keep up the pretense, and like the racism.
I think that, you know, it's some, you know, some people is bringing out the true color of these people. You know, is bringing out their true color, while some other people are actually also thinking, oh, I'm not actually racist. You know, for instance, this Black Lives Matters. So you could see lots and lots of mainstream communities that are actually on the front line of saying, no, Black Lives Matter, we're not having this. We don't want people that are going to separate us as communities. We are all the same. And then you find the ones, you know, the coneheads people that are actually showing their true color by, you know, perpetrating that hateful behaviors. So you know, the racist and stereotypical and discriminatory attitude perpetuates the mental health, or exacerbates the mental health well-being problems within minority communities at this time of the COVID. So that's another issue that you know, we have. And then you come into looking at the economics also. You know, we've talked about, which is one of the things about social inequalities anyway, that, you know, the disadvantage and the privilege. And the truth is there, they are, you know, coming from the mainstream background gives you some leeway, some, you know, that's the truth, because you are from that country, you understand everything about, you know, the culture, you understand the way of life.
In a totally different way. I'm completely
exactly. Yeah. So you have an edge already to somebody that just came into that country, and because some people come into the country, let's forget the racial aspect of it. Some people may have internalized thinking of saying, I'm not from here. Maybe I will not be entitled to this or to that. You see, so that could be another thing, not just the ratio, the disadvantage due to the, the complexion or, the skin tone, but also the internalized belief that, oh, because I'm not from here originally, I may not be entitled to this good thing or to that thing. Also,
expectations are low. Expectations are low because they're on the outside, and then they live up to their own expectations rather than feeling equal and entitled, and exactly. A self-fulfilling prophecy, because internalized feelings about
exactly. Or kind of also looking at it in the other way, like having this imposter kind of syndrome. Am I meant to be here? Am I supposed to be here?
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows what they're thinking about me? Should I or should I not? So this kind of uncertainty also, and in the places of work. So actually, sometimes it makes people not to apply for the jobs that they're overqualified to do.
Yeah.
It makes them not to apply for the jobs that are overqualified to do, because they peg themselves, they limit themselves and think maybe I'm not supposed to apply for that job. It may be for that person, or through past experiences of discrimination, whereby they actually took a leap of faith to say, let me apply for that job. I have all it takes to get that job, and they were disappointed. So that could also make them to just limit themselves, and economically they find themselves in that kind of problem. They don't have enough money to live, and this is what this COVID is doing. This COVID is actually impacting on the income of everybody anyway. And for a minority community person that may not have a good job, that may be in one of those jobs that are contracts or zero contracts, what do you think will happen to them? That's the fear of, how do I look after myself? How do I look after my family? The anxiety, the worries will actually build into their mental well-being, and it affects it. And culturally, I said cultural issues. Lots of research has shown, apart from evidence-based, but anecdotal also information that we get, that ethnic minorities themselves are worried about mental health. They don't talk about it. I will give you myself as an example. Where I come from originally, you don't talk about mental health openly the way it's talked about here, because where I come from originally, mental health, when you talk about somebody has mental health, you're actually talking about madness.
Yeah. So even just the discussion suggests all is not well. That you've already lost it if you're even mentioning it.
Exactly. So it's about being mad. It's about being crazy. It's not about any other thing. You can't say I'm anxious. There's nothing like being anxious. You can't say, oh, anxiety. You can't say, oh, I had stress. You can't say I'm worried. So it's about, those things are not something, that something must be wrong with you. How can you be? What are you stressing for? But then you now begin to say bipolar or schizophrenia or any other, diagnosis. That is, you're just plainly a mad person. And so that alone makes people worry, so they don't talk about it at all. So it's swept under the carpet.
Yeah.
So and so during this time, we know that many people that are isolating from that community will have anxiety, they will be stressed, they will be worried about what the future holds for them, but they won't talk about it because of the stigma attached to mental health. from the communities that we come from. For instance, there was this research that was done with some ethnic minorities, Black Asian minority ethnic communities in Scotland. So they had a very in-depth research with the Pakistanis, the Indians, the Chinese, the Black people, and other ethnic communities. And they found out that actually, so it was called Community Conversation Addressing Mental Health Stigmas. It was done in Scotland. What year was this done? It was done in 2009. And basically, many of them agree that many of these communities that were consulted during this research agree that, yes, they're aware of mental health issues. They worry, they're anxious, they know about this, but they don't talk about it. And they were asked, why don't you talk about it? And they said, for, that, the labeling, they will be, they're afraid that people will label them. They're afraid of the stigma that comes with mental health. They're afraid that people will exclude them. Their communities will exclude them and think that, they've lost it, and all sorts of things. And so, this community, if these people are saying this, how do you think they will engage with services? So they will not engage with services that will support them, and the services themselves may not be culturally proficient enough to know how to manage and provide intervention that will meet the needs of these people. So this, and then there are other issues also, like domestic violence. Domestic violence also is an issue within the community that also impacts on people's mental well-being. And people don't really talk about, it takes guts to talk about domestic violence. And if you now, combine it with your religious belief, in some of the cultures, you don't talk about domestic violence with other people. You have to deal with it in the church, And if the church where you go to is where they think, oh, let's do it in-house, so it's covered and nobody will know about it until it's too late.
Yeah.
And add it with all these COVID issues, then the BME person has no hope at all to survive. And then that brings us to the conversation. In your mind, with all the things that we're saying, what do you think? Because you're a very good person, you're neutral, you're a very good person that could bring in some suggestions. So what do you think that we could do to support this,
Yeah, I mean, I think that you've given a platform today to talk about this, and more of that is good. I can't help but notice there's only you and me here, and maybe that is significant of some of the things that you've just covered about
exactly
not wanting to put their hands up and have an open conversation. And I mean, within my mainstream community, there's still stigma. Maybe it's easier for us, but still people don't want to. They don't want to discuss vulnerability. I can relate to that on some level, and I don't think that's an easy one to overcome, because the fear factor is quite powerful. But I think just keep talking, keep making it available. I don't know. I think it's tough, but I just think we just need to lead by example and allow these conversations to be had. For more people if there are more people with the courage to say, look, this is me, and it doesn't mean that I'm mad or mental, that these are human responses, normal human responses to difficult situations, maybe by increments, it makes it more permissible and accessible. I think these are hard to reach and hard to have conversations in some communities.
That's true. You're right. I think having open conversations about mental health is the way forward. But in the time of COVID, How do you think we can have these open conversations? So what means? How do you, suggestion?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, we said right at the start that this is a time of great innovation if we can set aside the cost, the human cost of that for a minute. Maybe through these third-party communications, maybe having a conversation through a screen is actually less confronting. Maybe more, yeah. I'm trying to think of the word. Something, it's a bit like when you drive in a car. Everybody's in their own bubble in a car, aren't they? You feel protected. You shout at the driver in the car. You never would do it if they were stood there in front of you, but you can moan at them. It's like maybe through this medium, this digital medium, it's less confronting. Maybe it's something people can do quietly, shyly, and poorly, without having to front up in person and offload. You can, and this is what happens with social media. You can have people discussing things very openly, and people quietly watch. They quietly sit on the sidelines and they watch, and they don't necessarily participate, but they're taking it in.
Yeah, I agree with you. So maybe we may take the conversation to them.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. They don't. Yes, that's a good way to put it. Yes. So you have the conversations. They can sit on the sidelines and watch, or they can be involved. But you're having the conversation anyway.
Yeah. So we take it to them. Maybe, e.g., places of worship.
Yeah. I mean, I work a lot with social media. So for me, I'm seeing people like, of all the people, Russell Brand. I mean, he talks about all sorts of things, politically, philosophically, whatever. And he just sits there talking. But the number of times I've sat and listened just to see what he has to say. And he's having those conversations on social media. You can do a live on social media and talk about whatever you like.
Yes.
And people can quietly just hop on and observe.
Yes.
But
you could just have your just a solo kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Solo conversation.
TV. It's because TV's not live generally.
Yes.
And there is no option to engage directly. But if you're on a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live, you can have that conversation. You have a choice. Someone could press the like button.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. So, have a solo kind of conversation that people can link in Instagram, Facebook, actually having live on Facebook and all that.
You can do lives like this. You can do multiple conversations. You could interview people live, like we are now, on social media, and then that's broadcast.
Exactly.
And it stays there. That conversation is there to be gone back over, to be rediscovered, to be thought about on a day where maybe their minds are clearer and they're feeling braver. And maybe that will empower them when the time's right.
Exactly. So that's part of what we are doing now, because if you go to our website, you will see, although we've talked about mental well-being before, but we talked about it in the a broader kind of sense. We didn't specifically look at Black, Asian, minority, ethnic communities. We talked about mental health as impacts everybody during the COVID time, but because of what's been going on the television and all that, we thought that let's have this specific conversation on COVID amongst BMA, on mental health and how COVID is affecting BMA people today. So I think that's one of the key things to do. But another thing that could be done is, I'm thinking, is to encourage mainstream or specific organizations that deal with mental health, mental health organizations to think about, to be proactive, proactive in working with organizations that that work with, or that you know, BME organizations themselves, to work with BME organizations, and tap the local knowledge they have, you know, and tap the local knowledge that these organizations have to deal with mental health, so that they can actually provide local knowledge of these organizations.
Yeah, I mean, from where I'm sitting, you know, this intersection as women, as a woman, as someone who's had mental health issues, who's someone who has experienced domestic violence, I can't be the face of the BAME community, but I have a cross section of experience in some of the things, you know, as a woman I can lead, and with those experiences I can lead. Maybe that will, you know, those people like me can help lead the way for other, you know, minority groups to come forward on their own terms.
Yes, go back to the way you said it. I love the way you said it. You know, go back to it again. Say it.
We were talking about the intersection of experience.
Yes. Yeah.
So I can't speak for ethnic minority groups, Black or ethnic minority groups, but as a woman, as a woman who's had mental health issues, as a woman who's experienced domestic violence, I have, my experience cuts across, how did I put it? It cuts across experiences that you know, Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups will have had. And maybe if someone like me in the mainstream, for whom maybe it's easier to have that conversation, maybe I can lead the way, so that minority groups can come forward on their own terms.
Okay, so yeah, so basically use champions.
Yeah.
To use champions that have had experiences of mental health and other intersectional, isn't it?
Yeah.
Other intersectional markers.
Yeah.
Because
that's the common ground, isn't it? That's the common ground. That's where we come together with these experiences. You know, we have different experiences as well, but we intersect at points that be compelling in terms of making a difference.
Okay, what I said here, use champions that have had experiences of mental health and other intersectional markers as a common ground to draw in.
Yeah.
To draw in BME people.
Yes. BME
groups into services. Yeah.
Yes.
And interventions. Oh, that's great. You see that you're bringing a fresh perspective to this thing. I wouldn't have thought about it now. And it's really nice that we are looking at the intersectional aspect of it all, which is awesome.
Well, I can't share your experience and you can't share mine, but we do have these crossroads, these interesting crossroads. And that's what brings us together. They're the, you know, it is the common ground. Yes,
that's really good. So okay, let me put it here. Finding common grounds, yeah?
Yeah.
Finding common grounds to address mental well-being. Oh, that's great. Look at you.
Yeah.
You see, I've not seen you for quite some time, and you came in and look, you know, I'm really enjoying this conversation that we're having. Thank you very, very much.
It's really been on my mind. This is why you've been on my mind. It's very timely.
Because each time we meet, we really have good interaction, isn't it? I don't know about you, but I always feel that I leave every kind of contact that we make, I feel very fulfilled, and I leave very, you know, refreshed. Yeah.
That's good.
That's really nice. So do we have any other thing we want to add? So I was thinking about, you know, for these BME people, let me give you an example. Somebody contacted me telling me that they have a family member or a son-in-law that moved from somewhere into Swell. I know that Swell is predominantly a white community. And so this young man that moved in, you know, is actually feeling very isolated. And feeling isolated is also something that impacts on people's mental well-being. So I was being asked, is there any place for, you know, where they can socialize? And you know, there's no place for a Black man to socialize in this district. Do you know that?
Do you know, that comes as, sadly, that comes as no surprise.
Yes, there's no place they can socialize.
If there were places he could socialise, they probably wouldn't be the kinds of place I'd recommend to him. I think it's difficult to find places to socialise. It'd be difficult to find good places to socialise. And for a Black
person.
Yeah.
Okay. So, a place to socialize could be one of the things that could help to help rebuild feelings of mental well-being. And I tell you this because I've taken some, and we are aging, like the mainstream communities, the BAME people are aging communities also. But the fear is that when they get old, and I have the same fear that when I get old, where will I socialize? Where will I meet people of the same age group that we could talk to, that when my children have gone to work and all that, that I can find this place where, you know, people like myself, people that have shared the same, you know, experiences like myself, either academic or you know, occupational or any historical experience. Where will I find them so that we can relax and have a laugh and do something, to, you know, chat? There's no place. So I'm, you know, Diversity House, we're having to, you know, think seriously. Where do we have a number of retired people from different ethnic minority community, and I take them to them. So, you know, there's a place, you know, where, you know, we are mostly retired older people go to, you know, a day center in Sittingbourne, but they're not well received. They're not well received. And they come out and say, oh, Christine, we're not going to go back there again. Because they kind of, I've taken them myself, and the looks they're giving, the kind of dating looks that they receive and all sorts of things, that only is it's intimidating enough, you know? And then they run away and they say, I can't go there. There's nothing for me to do, you know? And most of these people also, when they go also, some have actually been there, but they came out saying, oh, I've been there 3 times, but it's only bingo they play, you know. So, you know, it's not good for them because bingo, they don't play bingo, and there's nothing else to do than play bingo, sit down, eat jelly and drink tea, and that ends it. Nothing to stimulate, nothing else to do, nothing else at all.
Oh, well, I'd say
And
that's
so,
probably a blessing in disguise. Who wants to sit around, eat jelly and play bingo all day long? If that's all you've got to look forward to.
it's not good enough, is it? But that's exactly what it is. So there's nothing, nothing to stimulate them. And these people have been people that, they've been so vibrant. They walked in different kinds of places, and they needed something to stimulate them. And they don't see themselves as somebody that will go eat jelly, sit down, play bingo, and just, they want something just to ginger them up, Yeah. And so that's a place to socialize, to help rebuild. That's a place actually that will look at taking into account the six ways to well-being. Learn, socialize, be active, give. All sorts of things. So that's the kind of place they would like.
It's ironic. It's ironic, really, that they're not accepted into local groups, but ultimately, the kind of place that you're describing sounds like exactly the sort of thing anybody who is still, still alive.
Yes.
And it's
exactly.
It's kind of the place that we could all do with when we're older.
Yes.
No one here has got that kind of wherewithal to do it.
We don't, and the problem is that if you ask those organizations that are working with the age group that we are talking about, to have an open conversation with you to say, to be a learning organization, most of them don't want to be a learning organization. They want to stick to the same old culture that they've had all the time. This is the way we do things here. But it can be. You've got to change. You've got to be innovative. We're living in a changing world. The society is not static, the society is very fluid, it's changed and evolves all the time. Swell is no longer the swell. Kent is no longer the Kent you used to have. United Kingdom is not the United Kingdom of, the 1700s. It's all changing. We are in a global village. And if we're in a global village, whereby there are a mixture of different, the diversity of people, we live in a very cosmopolitan world. And so we need to actually move with the changes,
Darwin comes to mind. I mean, Darwin summed it up, adapt or die, that's it. Exactly, but that's not what's happening,
So because if these organizations, there are dedicated organizations that are being funded and commissioned to provide services for specific people that are not like Diversity House that try to play God, which we are not anyway. So, but these people are kind of pigeonhole themselves into old people services, young people services, services for mental health, services for domestic violence, services for learning disability. So they've actually pigeonholed themselves into a specific kind of intervention. But if they can only listen to people and actually tailor their services to be person-centered, so that everybody that comes will find a niche in their services, then they will be saving money, and then they will save organizations like Diversity House the problem of trying to play God, which is not possible because we can't do everything. We can't please everybody. It's not possible at all. And so, and it's easy to do that if these organizations will, forget their own personal agenda and think about the agenda of their service users that are, that they are supporting. And that would make a change,
I mean, I see it as a really wonderful opportunity for cultural exchange, really enriching.
Exactly. And you exactly use the terminology that I've been using. I've been calling people to collaborate for cultural learning, cultural exchange, cultural learning. And this is the time for businesses like yourself, for big, public sector organizations, for, one-man businesses, for, also third sector organizations, this is the time to actually try to innovate.
Yeah.
And, let, kind of throw away the old culture that we have and try to embrace the new way, the new life that we find ourselves now. We are all in the same shoe. Whether it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter your race, your ethnicity, it doesn't matter your level of education, it doesn't matter, whether you are literate or illiterate, whether you are wealthy or you're not wealthy, whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we've moved into a new kind of world now, and we need to actually commission and plan our services and our businesses to embrace the new way that things are happening, the way we are going into now. So, and that means being culturally proficient.
Yeah, I like that, culturally proficient. That'll do.
Exactly. So, I think I will stop the recording because I think, do you have any other thing you want to add?
No, I think it's good that we have these conversations, that they're open. I think I know very little. I feel like there's so much more I could know and contribute if I was better informed. So I'm happy to be here with open ears and contribute in a way that I can and be educated.
But surprisingly, for somebody that says they didn't know much, let me tell you what you've contributed. Let me tell you the contributions, the wonderful contribution that you have made, that I'm going to take, I'm taking this away now to have conversations with people that will be, funders and also faith organizations and other community groups.
Yeah.
And to use, the takeaways from you today is having open conversations about mental health is important. Yeah. We need to have it. And being innovative, using third party platform such as digital mediums to talk to this may be enabling because there's this kind of distance, you kind of being neutral, which makes people feel safe, And you talked about taking the conversation to them, to the people themselves, and in different places where we think they will be, not to wait for them to come, but to take it to them. And also you talked about this thing of having a solo conversation using social media. And you made mention of, who is that brand?
Oh, Russell Brand.
Russell Brand, you talked about that. And that comes to mind that, yes, one person can actually make a change using Instagram, live in your Facebook, and you could actually, have a podcast and have a very open conversation, and which will be there for people to come and, look at it and reflect about what you have said. So, which is really good. And the reach will be so broad anyway. And you talked about encourage mental health organization. Oh, hold on. You said, encourage mental health organizations to be proactive in working with BME organizations who have the local knowledge, of this, using the local knowledge of these organizations so that they can provide culturally proficient intervention. Because I think if they understand the culture of these groups and knowing that to some of these groups, mental health is a taboo, it's a no-go area, there's stigma and labeling attached to it. So they will find a way that they could actually kind of sanitize the kind of language they use and the kind of intervention they give to make it, you know, culturally appropriate for them to want to use it, you know. So I think they could ask them questions. How do you want us to provide this kind of support for you? Then you talk something about intersectionality must be taken into account when addressing mental health. So intersectionality, knowing that we're not just talking about mental health, but there may be other underlying social issues that could affect this person. And that also, it may not just be about this person's ethnicity also or race, but it could be the gender of this person, because the way a Black woman, what's that?
I think, I'm sorry, I think it might be me. I think it might be my children.
Okay, so, but let me quickly wrap up. And then we talked about championing, the example you gave about yourself, that even though you're not from that ethnicity, but that you would have had experiences of being a woman that have gone through some mental health issue, that you can bring that experience to actually open doorways for people to want to talk and engage, you know, and feel actually not left behind or not be on their own, where, you know, on talking, that to know that other people also have had this kind of experience, regardless of their race or nationality or whatever.
Yeah.
And then a place to socialize, a conducive, a safe haven, which, you know, would be a nice place where these people can see I'm not alone. You know, there are other people in the same situation as myself. And so you see the kind of contributions you've made, and these are very good takeaways that I will go on and have very good conversations with people and say, these are some of the issues. Let's do something about it.
Yeah, and from my point of view, I'd like to show that there are people outside of these communities that want to be part of the solution, that are not part of the problem. Do you know what I mean? I want to show that there is the support there outside of the communities.
Yes, and that's good.
You know, from within.
Yes, which is good also, because you have actually shown it by actually being on this platform with me today. Yeah. So it's not just ethnic minorities that want to support, but there are other, you know, very good-minded people, you know, that want to help and support and champion the change within these different communities. And I thank you for being part of this. No bingo for me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being part of this. And